Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. The evening air carried the mingled fragrances of freshly mown grass and the sweet perfume of blooming roses, a hallmark of the serene neighborhood of Riverbend. Stephen Westbrook, a 35-year-old software engineer, stepped out of his car and let his gaze linger on his house. The modern two-story structure, with its broad windows and perfectly manicured lawn, embodied the life he and his fiancée, Samantha Sullivan, were building. With their wedding just a fortnight away, the home wasn't just a place, it was a symbol of their shared dreams and the love binding them together. Stephen inhaled deeply, attempting to dispel the lingering stress of a grueling day at work. His recent days had been consumed by long hours at the office as he quietly worked on a surprise honeymoon to Santorini, a gift he'd been meticulously planning for months. As he made his way up the driveway, a subtle movement in the living room window caught his attention. His heart quickened momentarily, hoping it was Samantha eagerly awaiting him. However, the sight that greeted him when he opened the door stopped him in his tracks. Samantha stood in the doorway, her dark hair swept into an elegant style. She wore a sleek black cocktail dress paired with sheer stockings and high heels, the ensemble accented by a string of pearls glimmering softly in the evening light. Though she looked stunning, something was undeniably amiss. Her expression, marked by tension and uncertainty, betrayed her outward composure. "Wow," Stephen said, his voice a mixture of admiration and confusion. "You look amazing. Did I forget about a special night?" Her lips curved into a strained smile as she gripped the doorframe. "No, Stephen," she replied, her voice wavering. "You didn't forget anything. We need to talk." A chill settled in Stephen's stomach. The last time she had uttered those words, it was about a spat with her best friend. This time the words felt heavier, more ominous. Looking past her, he noticed a travel bag resting near the door. "Are you going somewhere?" he asked, nodding toward it. Samantha hesitated, her shoulders stiffening. I'm heading out for the weekend," she murmured, her voice barely audible. Stephen's brows knitted in confusion. "What? The wedding is just 2 weeks away? What could be so urgent now?" She folded her arms as though steeling herself. "I've been feeling overwhelmed," she confessed. "Between the wedding, work, and everything else, I need space to clear my head." His confusion gave way to suspicion. "Space?" he repeated, his tone edged with disbelief. "And you decided this without talking to me? Where exactly are you going?" "A hotel downtown," she said quickly, avoiding his gaze. "Alone?" Stephen pressed, his voice rising slightly. Her hesitation was brief but damning. "No," she admitted, barely above a whisper. "I'll be with a friend." Stephen felt the air leave his lungs as her words sank in. His mind raced, grasping for clarity. "A friend?" he asked sharply. "And this friend, he wouldn't happen to be a man, would he?" Samantha's face flushed, her gaze dropping to the floor. "It's not what you think," she stammered. "He's just a friend." Stephen's fists clenched as his frustration boiled over. "You're spending the weekend with another man 2 weeks before our wedding, and you expect me to believe it's innocent? Who is he?" Her silence was deafening. Stephen took a step closer, his voice firm. "Tell me his name, Samantha. Don't make me ask again." Tears welled in her eyes as she finally whispered, "It's someone I've been talking to." "Talking to?" Stephen's voice was thick with disbelief. "About what? Us?" She nodded, barely meeting his gaze. "Yes," she admitted, her voice cracking. Stephen's jaw tightened as he struggled to contain his emotions. "And this someone? He isn't a therapist, a counselor, or a priest, is he?" he asked, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "He's a good listener," she muttered. Stephen threw his hands up in exasperation. "A good listener? You're risking everything we have because some guy decided to lend you an ear?" "I'm not throwing anything away," Samantha protested, her voice breaking. "I just need to do this. For me. For us." Stephen let out a bitter laugh, the sound hollow. "For us? How does sneaking off to a hotel with another man help us?" Her tears spilled over, streaking her makeup. I don't expect you to understand, she sobbed. Stephen's anger gave way to a profound sadness. How long? He asked quietly. What? Samantha replied, her voice small. How long has this been going on? He clarified, his voice trembling. Her lips quivered as she confessed. A few months. But it's not what you think. We've only been talking. Only talking? Stephen's voice was cold. Do you honestly think I'll believe that? I swear, Stephen, she pleaded. It's never gone further than that. Not yet, he shot back bitterly. But that's why you packed the bag, isn't it? Her silence was answer enough. Stephen turned away, running a hand through his hair as he struggled to process the unraveling of his world. He turned back to her, his voice heavy with pain. Do you even love me, Samantha? Or was this all just a charade? Her sobs deepened as she choked out her response. I love you, Stephen, I do. You're everything I've ever wanted, but... Her voice faltered, tears streaming down her face. But that's exactly why I did this. I needed one last experience before we got married. Stephen stared at her in shock. What are you saying? I've only ever been with you, she confessed. And as much as I love you, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing out. I just needed to know what it was like to be with someone else before committing to forever. Stephen inhaled sharply, his anger rekindling. So you're willing to throw everything away for a fleeting moment of curiosity? Is that supposed to make this easier to forgive? Stephen's voice was steady but unyielding as he confronted her. This is it, Samantha. If you step out of this house with that bag, there's nothing left for us. No wedding, no future, nothing. Do you understand? Samantha stood immobilized, her tears carving streaks down her cheeks. Stephen, don't do this, please, she begged, her words trembling. He shook his head, cutting her off with a sharp finality. No more lies, no more excuses. Make your choice. Her gaze flickered between him and the door, the weight of her decision pressing down like a suffocating fog. Seconds stretched into eternity before she clutched the bag closer to her chest and whispered, I'm sorry. Stephen's heart fractured as he watched her turn and leave. The click of the door closing behind her echoed like a gavel, sealing the end of their shared dreams. Left standing in the empty foyer, Stephen felt an avalanche of emotions crash over him. His mind raced with relentless questions. What had gone so wrong? Could he have changed the outcome? And now, with the life he knew in ruins, what was his next step? That night, he sat alone in the dim glow of his living room, nursing a glass of whiskey. The liquid burned as it slid down his throat, mirroring the anger and pain roiling within. Thoughts of betrayal swirled like a storm. Though he didn't know the man's name, Stephen vowed to uncover the truth. Samantha's actions demanded answers, and he wasn't about to let this end quietly. The following morning, he dialed Alex, an old friend from college, who had transitioned into a career as a private investigator. Alex, it's Stephen, he began, his voice raw and strained. I need your help. Samantha's been seeing someone else, and I need to know everything about him. Without missing a beat, Alex replied, I'll get on it. Give me a couple of days. When the call ended, Stephen's eyes landed on the engagement ring sitting on the coffee table. The sight of it stirred a complex mix of sorrow and resolve. Samantha had shattered his trust, but he wouldn't let her betrayal go unanswered. 2 days later, Alex called back with news. His name is Victor Tomlinson, Alex reported. He's a marketing consultant at her firm. Divorced, mid-40s, no kids. They've been meeting regularly, dinners, drinks, and last night they checked into a hotel downtown. Stephen's chest tightened. Do you have proof? Photos and receipts, Alex confirmed. I'll send them over. Moments later, Stephen opened the email. His hands trembled as he clicked through the images. Each one was a dagger. Samantha and Victor sharing laughter over dinner, their hands entwined as they walked into a hotel, the time-stamped receipts confirming it all. Stephen's anger ignited like a wildfire. He had given her an opportunity to confess, but she had chosen deceit. She would pay for that choice. Over the next few days, Stephen meticulously crafted a plan. The sting of betrayal still fresh, he refused to let the pain consume him. Samantha had underestimated him if she thought she could betray him without consequences. The first step was protecting himself. He scheduled a meeting with Claire Hartman, his astute and no-nonsense lawyer. Claire listened carefully as Stephen explained the situation, her brow furrowing with concern. He handed her a list of his assets and said, "I want it all secured. The house, the accounts, the car, everything." She nodded confidently. "Since you're not married, she has no legal claim. But we'll make sure there's no room for complications. Leave it to me." For the first time in days, Stephen felt a flicker of relief. Samantha might have broken his heart, but she wouldn't take anything else. That evening, another email from Alex arrived. This time, it contained a detailed report on Victor, his home address, work history, and even the car he drove. One detail leapt out. Victor wasn't just a colleague, he was Samantha's boss. The revelation turned Stephen's stomach. "Can you dig deeper?" Stephen asked Alex over the phone. "What exactly are you looking for?" Alex inquired. "Anything shady, financial misconduct, a criminal record, skeletons in his closet, whatever you can find." Alex chuckled darkly. "Consider it done." The next day, Stephen set his plan in motion. Using a fake email account, he attached the incriminating photos and crafted a scathing message. He sent it to Samantha's family, closest friends, and co-workers. But he didn't stop there. The photos were forwarded to a popular gossip blog notorious for exposing workplace scandals. Within hours, the story broke with the headline, "Marketing Boss Caught in Affair with Engaged Employee." The fallout was immediate. Samantha's phone was inundated with calls and messages. Friends and family bombarded her with questions and condemnations. Her mother left a voicemail laced with anger and disappointment. Stephen observed from afar as the carefully constructed facade of Samantha's life began to crumble. But Stephen wasn't finished. Later that week, Alex called back with a triumphant tone. "You'll love this," he said. "Victor's been embezzling funds from the company. Nothing obvious, but over time he's skimmed a significant amount." Stephen's lips curled into a cold smile. Perfect. He forwarded the evidence to the company's HR and legal teams. It didn't take long for them to act. By the end of the week, Victor was escorted from the office, his career in shambles. On Saturday, Samantha appeared on Stephen's doorstep, her polished exterior replaced by desperation. She pounded on the door until Stephen finally opened it, his face an unreadable mask. "What do you want?" he asked coldly. Tears streamed down her face as she stammered, "Stephen, I made a mistake. Please." "I made a grave error, one I can never undo. But my love for you never wavered." Samantha's voice quivered, her eyes glistening with remorse. Stephen let out a sharp, mirthless chuckle. "Love? Is that what you whispered to Victor when you snuck into his hotel room?" Her face paled, as though struck by his words. "It wasn't like that." "Don't even try!" Stephen cut her off, his tone booming, his fraying patience giving way to raw fury. "I gave you every opportunity to be honest, but you chose deceit. You chose to walk away. You've destroyed everything we had." He pressed on, his voice breaking as he spoke. Samantha sank to her knees, tears cascading down her cheeks. "I was confused, Stephen. I didn't know what I wanted then, but I do now. It's you. It's always been you." She raised her tear-streaked face to him, desperation etched in her features. "Please let me fix this. Give me another chance." Stephen's gaze was cold, his emotions a chaotic mix of pain and anger. "You still don't understand," he said, his voice chillingly composed. "This isn't about second chances. It's about accountability," he continued, each word landing like a blow. "You didn't just hurt me, you humiliated me, and now you're finally reaping what you sowed." Samantha's cries grew louder, her voice cracking with desperation. "I'll do anything, Stephen. Anything." He bent down, meeting her eyes, his voice low but laced with venom. "You've already done enough." Straightening, he motioned to the sidewalk. "Get up, leave, we're finished." The final cut came days later. Stephen sent proof of Samantha's affair with Victor to her company's CEO. While Samantha wasn't implicated in Victor's embezzlement, their relationship was scandalous enough to destroy her reputation. Her firing was swift and merciless. Through mutual friends, Stephen learned Samantha had moved back with her parents, unable to manage her expenses alone. Victor's fate unraveled even faster. His finances came under investigation, leading to a full-blown inquiry. As the months rolled on, Stephen began to rebuild the life that Samantha's betrayal had shattered. He sold the engagement ring he had once offered her, donating the money to a local nonprofit. The home they had shared was listed for sale, and Stephen moved to a new area, determined to start fresh. One quiet afternoon, as he sipped coffee on the balcony of his new apartment, his phone vibrated with a message. It was from Alex. "Victor's been sentenced. 3 years for fraud." Stephen exhaled slowly, a faint smile tugging at his lips as he closed the message. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, he felt a sliver of peace. Samantha's treachery had nearly broken him, but in surviving the ordeal, he found resilience he hadn't known he possessed. He vowed never to allow anyone to exploit his trust again. The wounds would take time to heal, but one truth was certain. He had emerged stronger, tempered by the storm he had weathered. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel. Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. Samantha, my stunning wife, radiated an unusual exuberance tonight. After we finished dinner and settled on the couch, she unexpectedly climbed onto my lap, covering me in kisses and wrapping her arms around me with unrestrained excitement. Her lively energy seemed even more pronounced than usual. People know me as Anthony, and I first met Samantha over 5 years ago. We've been married for 4 of those years, recently celebrating our anniversary. Our story began shortly after I transitioned out of the Marines, where I had dedicated myself to rigorous physical training and teaching self-defense. My military career culminated in a year-long tenure as a drill instructor, transforming recruits into capable soldiers. While fulfilling, I yearned for a life beyond the military. After leaving the service, I used the savings from my 4 years in uniform to establish a fitness and health training business. The venture quickly took off, and I immersed myself in helping clients reach their personal fitness milestones. Standing 6'4" and weighing 255 pounds of solid muscle, I projected a level of fitness that motivated those I trained. Watching clients evolve from hesitant beginners to confident, strong individuals within months brought me a profound sense of accomplishment. It was during this time that I met Samantha. She was the younger sister of one of my clients. Despite our contrasting physiques, her petite 5'4" frame at 110 pounds compared to my much larger build, we formed an immediate connection. At 22, Samantha's youthful energy and charm contrasted with my 26 years of life experience. Though fitness wasn't her passion, we bonded over shared interests and spent our free time exploring life together. Our relationship blossomed, and within a year, we were married. Samantha's playful, vibrant personality was among the many traits that captivated me. While some might dismiss her as a frivolous blonde, I found her charm endearing. That said, she sometimes lacked practicality. As a fitness trainer with a physique that often attracted attention, I took proactive measures to safeguard my reputation and our relationship by installing cameras throughout the gym. This decision ensured transparency and reassured Samantha, who could monitor the facility remotely if she ever felt the need. Our life was stable and fulfilling. My business thrived, and Samantha's work as a real estate agent provided additional financial stability. One Sunday afternoon, as we relaxed with a bottle of wine in the living room, her playful side came out in full force. Her laughter filled the room as she leaped into my lap, showering me with affection. Her warmth and energy always made me feel loved, but the mood shifted abruptly when she casually shared unexpected news. "Anthony, Brandon's taking me out to dinner next Friday. You're okay with that, right?" she asked, her fingers running through my hair as she smiled sweetly. At first, her words didn't register. I was too captivated by her radiant smile. When she repeated the question, the meaning finally clicked. "What exactly are you saying, Samantha?" I asked, confusion creeping into my voice. "Oh, don't be silly," she giggled. "Brandon from the office invited me to dinner and I might have said yes." Disbelief swept over me as her words sank in. Wait, are you seriously asking for my permission to go on a date with another man? I managed to say, striving to keep my composure. It's not really a date, she replied lightly. Just dinner and maybe a movie. Nothing serious. I stared at her, the woman I had always believed embodied loyalty and devotion. Samantha, that's the very definition of a date. Do you truly think this is acceptable? Anthony, please don't be jealous. He's nothing like you. It's just one evening, she said, trying to reassure me. I love you, and he means nothing to me. I just want to do this. Years of military discipline kept me from reacting impulsively, but the hurt was undeniable. I see you've already made up your mind, I murmured, feigning acceptance. Reaching for my phone, I dialed a client who had consistently shown interest in me. Hi, Mary. It's Anthony, I said, noting Samantha's puzzled expression. Is your offer for Friday still open? Great. My wife has decided we're trying an open marriage, so I thought of you. Samantha froze, her hand stopping mid-stroke through my hair. Who's Mary? She demanded, suspicion flashing in her eyes. She's a client of mine, I replied nonchalantly. We're going out on Friday just like you and Brandon. Her face contorted with anger as she jumped off my lap. I can't believe you! How could you do this? She shouted, her voice rising. You're going out with some woman? That's unacceptable! But it's perfectly acceptable for you to go out with Brandon? I countered, barely suppressing my amusement. It's different, she insisted, her tone defiant. How so? I pressed. You're the one who brought this idea into our marriage. Did you think I'd just sit back while you dated someone else? As her anger dissolved into tears, I maintained my resolve. Starting next week, we're going to counseling to figure out why you feel I'm not enough for you, I said firmly. Until Friday, I'll be staying in the guest room, and intimacy is off the table. The thought of you wanting another man is too painful. Her tears flowed freely as I continued. After Friday, we'll decide if there's anything left to salvage in this marriage. Just remember, Samantha, this situation stems from your choices. Whatever happens next is a consequence of that. I wasn't about to alter my course, no matter the repercussions. Samantha, visibly shaken and overcome with emotion, exited the room in silence. Not long after, I overheard her on the phone with her sister, a response I had anticipated. From the sound of their conversation, her sister's support seemed lukewarm at best. About an hour later, Samantha returned, her usual demeanor of sweetness and charm back in place. However, I was prepared and determined not to fall for her strategies. Darling, she began hesitantly, I've been thinking, and I realize I made a mistake agreeing to go out with Brandon. I've decided to cancel it. I don't want anyone but you. Her voice was soft and sounded genuine, but I remained composed. That's your decision to make, I said evenly. But let's be clear. You set these events in motion, and I intend to see things through. Whether you stay home or meet Brandon, it won't change my plans with Mary, I continued, my tone steady but firm. You made your choices, fully aware they would hurt me. Now I need to follow this path and see where it leads. Perhaps you're right. Maybe exploring the idea of an open marriage is something we need to do. But every action has consequences, Samantha. You accepted his invitation without discussing it with me first. Regret clouded her expression. It wasn't a date, Anthony. You have to believe me. It was just a casual get-together after work. It didn't mean anything. Call it whatever you like, I replied sharply. But the damage is done. With that, I grabbed a beer and stepped onto the patio, leaving her standing there. That night, I slept in the guest room, while her muffled sobs echoed through the house for the remainder of the week. The following morning, Samantha's sister Patricia called me, her voice tinged with concern. Anthony, she began, is it true you're going out with someone else this week? Samantha loves you. You can't do this to her. Patricia, I said firmly, you don't have the full picture. Samantha accepted an invitation from a coworker without consulting me. She informed me after the fact, disregarding my feelings and the vows we've made. I've been nothing but faithful since the day we met, but I'm questioning whether I can stay in a marriage where my wife considers the company of another man. There was a pause before she replied. I didn't realize she'd been so thoughtless. Please, Anthony, give her some grace. She may not even understand the pain she's caused. I've been patient, I answered. I haven't acted rashly, but she needs to face the consequences of her actions. Later that day, Patricia's words seemed to have an effect. Samantha approached me, contrite and pleading for us both to reconsider. She begged me to cancel our respective dates and reevaluate the direction we were headed. But I stood firm. The realization that she had entertained another man's company left a wound I wasn't sure could heal. To ensure there was no ambiguity, I arranged for Mary to pick me up at our home. I wanted Samantha to see her, to fully understand what an open marriage entailed. Although Samantha expressed reluctance about meeting Brandon, I encouraged her to honor her commitment. She bristled when I referred to Brandon as her boyfriend, and insisted he was only a friend. Still, she dressed attractively but modestly for the evening, a choice that gave me a faint glimmer of hope. When Mary arrived right at 6 p.m., Samantha's expression was a mix of shock and discomfort. Mary's presence was strikingly different from Samantha's. Tall, athletic, and exuding confidence, she wore an outfit that was both bold and revealing. My tailored sports jacket complemented her assertive energy. Ignoring Samantha's unease, I handed her the camera and asked her to take a few pictures of Mary and me together. Samantha's forced smile barely concealed her jealousy. Mary greeted her warmly. "It's wonderful to meet you, Samantha. Anthony has told me about your open marriage. I think it's great. I've had my eye on him for a while, so I was thrilled when he reached out." Before Samantha could respond, the doorbell rang. Brandon had arrived. Her expression shifted to one of nervousness as I welcomed him inside. He was unremarkable, short, wiry, and far from intimidating. Still, I couldn't understand Samantha's choice. I shook his hand firmly, enjoying his discomfort. "My wife is ready for your date," I said with a hint of mischief. "Enjoy yourselves." Brandon's hesitancy was obvious as he glanced at Samantha for reassurance. Mary and I left the house, sharing a quiet laugh at the tension we'd left behind. Mary and I had a fantastic evening filled with dinner, dancing, and a serene walk along the beach. Her energy was infectious, her kisses electric, yet my thoughts continually drifted back to Samantha. Each moment with Mary reminded me of memories I had shared with my wife, casting a bittersweet shadow over the night. When Mary dropped me off the next morning, we shared a lingering goodbye kiss in the driveway. I knew Samantha had witnessed it from the window, but I felt no guilt. While the night had been enjoyable, it left me with more questions than answers. Inside, Samantha confronted me immediately. "Nice kiss," she snapped, her voice sharp with anger. "What else did you do?" I met her glare with calm. "Good morning, Samantha. How was your evening with Brandon? He seemed like a decent guy." "You slept with her," she accused, her voice trembling. "Samantha," I replied evenly, "it was just a first date. Don't jump to conclusions." The tension between us was palpable, but the questions weighing on my heart remained unanswered. The first date. "Are you planning to see her again?" she demanded, her voice sharp with urgency and unmistakable tension. "I haven't decided yet. Are you going to meet your boyfriend again?" I shot back, holding her gaze firmly. "No, absolutely not. I don't want him, I want you," she confessed, her voice breaking as tears began to streak down her cheeks. "Funny, it didn't seem that way just a week ago. What changed?" I retorted, frustration heavy in my tone. Samantha's expression shifted as if the weight of her actions finally began to register. Maybe in her mind, her time with Brandon was innocent, a harmless interaction with someone she considered a friend. To her, he posed no real threat. I struggled to grasp her perspective, though I couldn't help wondering if I had overreacted. Still, the expectation that any husband would be comfortable with his wife meeting another man, regardless of the context, was beyond me. I pulled Samantha into my arms, holding her close. "Samantha, I love you more than words can express, but I can't stay with someone who allows herself to entertain feelings for anyone else. Infidelity, in any form, is something I can't overlook. If you ever lie to me again or break my trust, I won't hesitate to leave. Do you understand?" I held her gaze as I spoke, my words firm and deliberate. Samantha nodded quickly, her embrace tightening as she kissed me fervently. "Yes, I understand. I'd never cheat on you. I've only ever wanted you. This was different, she murmured, her voice trembling with emotion. Her tears dampened my shirt as she clung to me. It wasn't a date. What you had with her, that was a date. Brandon and I just had dinner, but after he bumped into you and hurt his hand, he insisted on leaving early. It was miserable. He dropped me off before 8. Since then, I've been consumed with worry about what you might have been doing with her. And then seeing you kiss her. Her voice trailed off as new tears fell. I tightened my arms around her, whispering reassurances. Despite the gravity of the moment, a fleeting thought crossed my mind. Brandon likely wouldn't challenge me again anytime soon. Our handshake the previous night had made that much clear, which was why I'd insisted on meeting him before Mary and I left. Samantha, I said gently, let's leave last night behind us for now, but I'm serious about starting counseling. There are things we both need to understand about each other. If we can rebuild trust, I'll end things with Mary and cut off any other women who've expressed interest. Her eyes widened slightly at the implication that Mary wasn't the only complication, but she chose not to press the issue. Returning to our shared bed felt like a cautious step forward. Counseling, as it turned out, became an invaluable lifeline for us. Our therapist, Mrs. Stewart, provided a space where we could unravel our emotions and communicate more openly. She helped Samantha see how her actions had made me feel disregarded and undervalued. Samantha initially defended herself, insisting that Brandon was nothing more than a friend, and their dinner was no different than an outing with one of her girlfriends. But under Mrs. Stewart's guidance, she began to recognize how crossing certain boundaries, however unintended, could be harmful in a committed relationship. Spending time with another man at the expense of our relationship wasn't acceptable, regardless of her intentions. Samantha also voiced her hurt, arguing that my decision to go on a date with another woman felt retaliatory and deeply unfair, especially given Mary's undeniable attractiveness. Mrs. Stewart intervened, helping Samantha understand my perspective and the emotional turmoil I'd experienced. When it was my turn to speak, I looked directly at Samantha. Samantha, I love you, but hearing about you going out with Brandon crushed me. It triggered something primal in me, a need to retaliate. If you were exploring the possibility of seeing someone else, I felt compelled to do the same. It was a mistake I regret deeply, but I need you to understand that the responsibility for this situation lies with you. If this ever happens again, I'll file for divorce without hesitation. This is your only warning. I believe you when you say it wasn't a date, which is why I'm willing to work through this, but I won't tolerate a repeat. That conversation marked a turning point for us. Samantha became more attuned to my feelings, and our communication improved significantly. What had once seemed like an irreparable rift became an opportunity to strengthen our relationship. Therapy continued for several months, during which we learned to prioritize each other in ways we hadn't before. Remarkably, Mary reached out to Samantha, offering reassurance and promising to step back entirely. She even went as far as to say she'd only re-enter the picture if Samantha ever decided to end things with me. Faced with the reality of the consequences her actions might bring, Samantha underwent a profound transformation. She realized the depth of our connection and the importance of safeguarding it. Never again did she give me a reason to doubt her loyalty or question her intentions. She embraced the responsibilities of our commitment fully and wholeheartedly. Though Samantha and Brandon remained friends, their dynamic shifted significantly. Brandon became more cautious, careful never to cross any lines. Reflecting on it all, I realized that relationships often defy simple logic. Yet in navigating the complexities together, we found a way to emerge stronger than ever. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel. Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. I'm a 36-year-old man, married to Allie, who's 37. We've been together for 7 years, and for much of that time, I believed our relationship was solid and unshakable. But lately I've found myself doubting everything. It feels like our marriage is teetering on the edge, leaving me to question whether those 7 years ever truly reflected the partnership I thought we had. The turning point came last month during a visit to my grandfather's farmhouse. It was his 89th birthday, and with his health declining, our family decided to organize a celebration in his honor. Allie joined me for the event, but she left the following morning to return to her job. I opted to stay for the week, working remotely so I could spend more time with my grandfather. Each evening, Allie and I kept in touch through video calls, trying to maintain our connection despite the physical distance. Things took a startling turn midway through the week during one of our nightly calls. We were chatting casually when Allie asked a question that shook me to my core. "Have you ever thought about opening our marriage?" she said. Her words hit me like a bolt of lightning. My heart sank, and my mind began racing. At that moment, I was juggling a few tasks, but her question immediately derailed my focus. I turned toward the screen, hoping I'd misunderstood. "Can you repeat that?" I asked. She sighed as if I were being dramatic and said, "I'm just asking, why don't we open up our marriage? Explore other people. It could be fun, something new to try." Her tone was so nonchalant, as though she were suggesting a weekend activity or a new restaurant. I was stunned into silence. This idea was utterly foreign to the relationship we'd built. We weren't the type of couple who needed outside stimulation to keep things interesting. When I finally found my voice, I replied, "No, I've never thought about it, and I don't want to." She shrugged, brushing off my reaction. "I was just curious. Other couples seem to enjoy it. Even some celebrities do it, and it works for them," she said, rattling off examples. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. My chest tightened as I struggled to process why she was even considering this. "Why are you bringing this up now, Allie?" I asked, my voice strained. "What made you think this is something we should explore?" She explained that she'd been reading about polyamory and found it intriguing. She insisted it was just a casual curiosity, nothing more. I listened carefully, then firmly reiterated, "No, that's not for me. I'm not willing to share you with anyone else. That's not the kind of marriage I signed up for." She nodded, but her expression betrayed a flicker of disappointment. She quickly pivoted the conversation to another topic, but I couldn't shake the sense that this was far from over. Though I had planned to stay at the farmhouse a few more days, the weight of our conversation was unbearable. I cut my visit short and headed home the next day, feeling uneasy. When I arrived, Allie was still at work. I couldn't ignore a nagging suspicion that her suggestion might mean she was already cheating, or thinking about it. I searched through her things, her closet, her makeup bag, but found no evidence of infidelity. When she came home later, she seemed unfazed to see me. "I figured you'd come back early after our talk," she said with a faint edge of sarcasm. The conversation quickly escalated. "Are you accusing me of cheating?" she demanded when I pressed her on the topic. I told her I wasn't accusing her, but that I was deeply troubled by her sudden interest in an open marriage. Her reply floored me. "That's the beauty of an open marriage. You don't have to worry about cheating. You know your partner loves you and they're not going anywhere. Isn't that enough?" "No," I said resolutely. "That's not how I see it. It's our responsibility to make each other feel secure, not to share our lives with others to fix insecurities." The tension rose until I finally asked her outright if she was being unfaithful. She responded by offering me her phone, daring me to check it. But I knew better. If she was prepared for my suspicions, she'd have already covered her tracks. I handed her phone back untouched. "I trust you," I said, though doubt still gnawed at me. She began crying, insisting she'd never cheated and that her suggestion had been nothing more than a fleeting thought. Her tears softened me and I felt guilty for doubting her. We reconciled, and for a short while things seemed to return to normal. But soon Allie's behavior began to change. She became more distant, distracted, and preoccupied. She stayed late at work more often, citing vague reasons. Whenever I voiced my concerns, she dismissed them, offering her phone each time as if to reassure me. Still, my gut told me something was off. Around this time, I was offered a 3-week assignment in Germany, a significant career opportunity. But the timing felt awful. Leaving Allie during such a fragile moment in our relationship filled me with apprehension. After much deliberation, I accepted the offer, convincing myself that I was overthinking everything. While in Germany, our communication dwindled, At first, we messaged each other daily, but soon her replies grew terse and infrequent. I sent her long updates about my day and expressed how much I missed her, only to receive curt, one-word responses. When I asked if everything was okay, she repeated her usual refrain. "I'm just busy. Don't worry." Then, during one of our rare calls, Allie brought up the idea of an open marriage again. This time, her tone was decisive, not speculative. "You see," she said, "this is why open marriages work. There are no boundaries. You're away for weeks, I have needs, and you're afraid of me cheating? Wouldn't it be easier if we just embraced the idea?" Her words felt less like a suggestion and more like a decision already made. Her decision was final. It was clear nothing I said would make a difference. Stunned into silence, I managed only to promise that we'd discuss it when I returned. Cutting my trip short, I resolved to uncover the truth for myself. I didn't inform Allie of my early return, wanting to gauge her reaction when she thought I was still miles away. As I stepped inside, the house seemed unnaturally tidy, as though she'd gone to great lengths to craft an illusion of normalcy. She greeted me with a startled smile that felt oddly artificial, almost as if it had been practiced. I observed her closely, careful not to betray my growing doubts. Discreetly, I checked her phone but found no evidence of anything suspicious. For a moment, I questioned whether I was overreacting. Convincing myself I might be imagining things, I waited for her to bring up the subject again. She didn't. Then, just yesterday, she burst into the room after work, her tone sharp and insistent. "We need to talk about this now," she declared. Bewildered, I replied, "Talk about what?" Avoiding my eyes, she said, "I've been speaking to some people. There's this couple I know who've been doing it for a while. They swear by it. I think we should try it too." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. "What are you even talking about? Who are these people?" After a pause, she confessed to meeting the couple on an online forum. They were advocates for open marriages and had been encouraging her to explore the lifestyle. "You've been discussing this with strangers?" I shouted, disbelief dripping from my voice. "Do you realize how absurd this is?" Her response floored me. "I've been trying to get you to see things differently, but you're stuck in your outdated ideas about marriage. I'm done waiting for you. I'm opening this marriage whether you agree or not." Her declaration hit me like a physical blow. Gripping her shoulders, I demanded, "Have you already cheated on me? Tell me the truth." Her face flushed, and after a brief hesitation, she admitted to seeing someone else. She tried to minimize it, saying, "It was just once, and I thought you'd eventually come around and join me." Her casual tone about such a betrayal left me reeling. Anger surged within me, a rare and dangerous occurrence. "You thought I'd join you?" I roared. "Cheating is cheating, whether it's once or 1,000 times. You've destroyed my trust. This ends here." I stormed out, consumed by rage, needing to escape before I did something I'd regret. That night I stayed at my cousin's place, grappling with the realization that my marriage was falling apart. The next morning, I returned to collect a few essentials, planning to stay at a motel while deciding my next steps. I avoided seeing her, fearing it might push me over the edge. Over the following days, I remained at the motel, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Fury, heartbreak, and uncertainty battled within me. Despite everything, I couldn't ignore the love I still felt for her, which only deepened the pain. Allie sent me a single message during this time. "I know you're angry, and I understand, but I wanted this to be something we did together, not against each other. It's not cheating, I love you, and this could bring us closer. You'll see that eventually." Her words solidified my resolve. Without delay, I contacted a divorce lawyer, paying extra to expedite the process. A week later, I returned to the house and found her on the phone, blatantly flirting with someone. She didn't even flinch upon seeing me. Instead, she smiled and hung up, attempting to embrace me. "I knew you'd come around," she said. "This is going to be amazing. I'll even help you find someone." I stepped back, meeting her gaze coldly. "I filed for divorce," I stated. Her face froze before she burst into laughter. "You're not serious. You love me. You wouldn't do this." I stayed silent, already mentally moving on. In the days that followed, I prepared for my departure with precision. I avoided conversations and minimized interactions. Quietly, I rented a condo and began moving my belongings there when she wasn't home. She was too engrossed in her fantasies to notice. When the divorce papers arrived, I waited for her to leave for work before packing up the rest of my things. I left her belongings scattered across the floor and recorded our recent interactions as evidence, knowing the divorce could turn contentious. That evening, she returned to find the house half empty. Her stunned expression was almost satisfying. "This isn't real," she mumbled. "You're just trying to scare me." I couldn't help but laugh. "It's real," I said. "You brought this on yourself." As reality hit her, she unraveled, but I had already made my escape. The life we had built together was over, and I was ready to move forward, leaving her and the betrayal behind. She crumpled into sobs, her hands gripping my face tightly, as she poured out a confession of love, begging me not to leave her. She insisted that she had done everything within her power to rekindle the bond in our marriage, pleading with me to move past the events of recent months. Tearfully, she vowed to sever all ties with other men and commit entirely to monogamy, imploring me to give her a chance to make things right. Her voice trembled with desperation as she held on to me, her words an attempt to stop me from walking away. Her pleas soon became a relentless echo, each phrase blending into the next. "I'll do whatever it takes. I'll change. I promise there will be no one else. Just don't leave me." My response was a bitter chuckle, its hollow sound cutting through her desperate words. "You're only saying this because you see I'm done," I replied, my voice void of warmth. "But it's too late now. You made your decisions, and you'll have to live with the consequences." I continued packing my things, resolutely ignoring her cries as she collapsed against the doorway. Without turning back, I stepped out and drove away. When she attempted to reach me later, I blocked her number and every other way she could contact me. Even her closest friend tried messaging me on social media, but I refused to engage. It has been 3 days since that night. Now living alone, I keep myself occupied to stave off the emptiness. The initial shock and numbness have shifted to a mix of pain, anger, and solitude. I've buried myself in twice-daily workouts, brisk walks, and hours at the office to avoid sinking into darker thoughts. Her words still haunt me, replaying endlessly in my mind. Was her remorse real? This time, I think it was. But that doesn't change anything. Update 2. My lawyer informed me that she had reached out, requesting a meeting before she'd agree to proceed with the divorce. He recommended caution, but advised me to consider meeting her. Reluctantly, I agreed, with strict conditions. The discussion would be recorded, and we would meet in a public setting. She begged for a private conversation at our home, but I stood firm, arranging instead to meet at a quiet corner of a local cafe. When I arrived, she was already seated, rising quickly as though to embrace me. I brushed past her and took a seat across the table. Her appearance was haggard, her face pale, her eyes swollen from crying. She looked utterly defeated, but I steeled myself against any feelings of sympathy. Turning on the recording device, I informed her that our conversation was being documented. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks as she whispered, "I'm so sorry. I already feel so much guilt. Please don't make this worse." She confessed to acting out of selfishness and foolishness, claiming she thought her choices would somehow strengthen our relationship. I couldn't contain my incredulity. "Strengthen us? You believed cheating and deception would somehow bring us closer?" I shot back. When she tried to explain her reasoning, I cut her off, demanding the full truth. How had this begun? How long had it been happening? Between sobs and long pauses, she finally revealed the details. A colleague and her husband had introduced her to the concept of polyamory. At an office party, she had witnessed her colleague kissing a young intern while her husband watched approvingly. Later, confused and intrigued, she had approached her colleague, who explained their lifestyle and warned her that it required mutual consent. But instead of discussing it with me, Allie decided I would accept it because of my love for her. Without my knowledge, she pursued her desires. She admitted to an affair with the same intern from the party, but insisted it stopped there. Unconvinced, I pressed her further. Eventually, she confessed to 7 encounters with 3 different men, including one involving 2 of them simultaneously. Each revelation felt like a dagger to my chest. Despite the gravity of her actions, she insisted none of it meant anything. Her attempts to plead for forgiveness fell flat. "You've obliterated the trust between us," I told her coldly. "You've destroyed what we spent years building together." She dissolved into uncontrollable sobs, and for the first time, my own tears fell. She reached for my hand, promising we could rebuild our love, but I couldn't see past her betrayal. "I can't look at you without remembering what you've done," I said firmly. "Reconciliation isn't possible. You need to accept that." Rising from my seat, I ignored her desperate grip on my hand as she begged for one last hug. I turned away, indifferent to the sound of her sobbing. A few days later, her father reached out requesting to speak with me. Out of respect for the kindness her family had always shown me, I agreed. At their home, her parents offered heartfelt apologies. Her father, visibly heartbroken, spoke sparingly, expressing his concern for Ali, who had become reclusive, cried incessantly, skipped meals, and frequently called in sick to work. Her mother cautiously suggested the possibility of reconciliation, but did not push further. I responded politely but firmly, making it clear that our marriage was over. As I left, her father embraced me, offering words of understanding. In an odd way, it was comforting. Months have now passed. The divorce proceedings continue, and I've encountered Ali and her parents several times in court. Ali appears to be a shadow of her former self, frail and almost unrecognizable. Her parents have sought therapy for her, hoping to help her cope. Meanwhile, I have started piecing my life back together, moving on from the wreckage of our marriage. Ali still sends me lengthy emails filled with regret and pleas for forgiveness, but I no longer respond. The woman I once loved is gone, replaced by someone I no longer recognize. Some wounds may never fully heal, but I am free now, free to rebuild, free to begin again. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.